All right. Good morning, everyone, and a good Ner Shabbos. And thank you so much for joining us here today. Today's Shir should be Le'ilu Nishmas, our dear friend Menachem Ben Yisrael Yaakov, as well as my dear aunt Rivka Bas Gabriel Tzvi, and for Zaidi, Reb Shmuel Ben Yosef Dover Kohen, also the Refuah Shalema Bekarov Meshalem Ben Sarah Rachel, Miriam Bas Sarah, and Yair Yeshia Ben Chaya Atara. Today we are on page 110 in the art scroll for those who are following along. And we have gone over the last couple of days and we spoke about the different concepts of Bitachon as far as choosing the right occupation based on Bitachon. We spoke about the ideas that Hashem gives us capabilities, Hashem gives us gifts in how to do work. Hashem also gives us love for certain particular lines of work and correlates that with our abilities, whether it's mental aptitude or physical abilities in order to do those jobs, those businesses that we get ourselves into. And today we are going to talk about the correct attitude when working for a living. Like, what is the correct mindset to have, a Baal Bitachon's mindset, when we are in the midst of our work every single day? And so he says like this. Rav Av teach us that the proper mindset towards Hishtadlus is a fulfillment of one's religious duty. And the idea over here is that Hishtadlus, working for a living, to make money, to put food on the table, and for everything else that we want or need in our lives, is part of it's part of Yiddishkeit, it's part of religion, it's part of what Hashem wants for us. And he says it like this. He says, while occupied mentally or physically with a particular means of livelihood and its pursuit, one's intention should be lamoy b'mitzvahs habareh, that he is doing this for the sake of fulfilling Hashem's commandment as a mitzvah, that this is what Hashem wanted him to do. Shetziv ha'adam les'asek b'sivos ha'olam, who instructed man to engage in worldly means of earning a living, meaning that he's doing a commandment of Hashem. Hashem instructed a person, go out, do Hishtadlus, put food on your table. Therefore, this is Hashem telling us to do this. So it's a mitzvah for us to listen to Hashem and do His will. It's part of God's will. Kavoidas ha'adama v'charishasa uzriyasa, such as working the ground, plowing it, sowing it. It says in the Pasuk, "Vayikach Hashem Elokim es ha'adam v'yinicheyu b'gan eden la'avda u'l'shamra." It says in the Pasuk in Bereshit, it says Hashem took the man and placed him in the Garden of Eden to work it and to guard it. And Hashem's commandment to Adam Arishon was to work the land in the Garden of Eden. He says came before he did the chait, before he sinned, and the knowledge was not the result of a curse issued to him in the aftermath of that sin. So we all know that Adam Rishon sinned. He did what he wasn't supposed. He ate what he wasn't supposed to, and therefore the punishment was now man always has to work for a living. And before we can say that no, we had easy street. We could have sat back on the couch and did nothing. We would have had everything we needed in order to survive. But he's showing over here that even before he sinned, Hashem still commanded him to go and work the ground, work the fields, make food grow so he should be able to survive, be able to sustain himself. And so it's not because of his sins that we are forced to work today. Accordingly, Rav Av maintains that the need to engage in personal effort in order to obtain a livelihood is not a punishment as to mankind. It's rather a mitzvah, a religious duty imposed upon man for the two reasons presented earlier, which was, we spoke about, to test a person, his commitment to Hashem, and also to make sure he doesn't sit around and do nothing. And he goes further and he says, B'shar ba'alei chayim b'torah lasav, and he further instructed man to use other living things for his personal needs. Hashem told us, he told mankind, go out, work the fields, work the world, use the entire world and all its resources. Use it for your survival, to better yourself. He says for a living person, for his needs such as sheep for wool and horses for riding, umazoinov, and to eat animals as his food, uvinyan hamadinos, and to use them for building cities, such as by having packed animals transport building materials, va'avanas hamazoinos, and for preparing his food, such as by having them plow the field or turn the grinding mill, or as we spoke a few weeks ago about how the ox is used for the energy to get water out of the well. And he also commanded man to marry women and to cohabit with them for the sake of having children. He says all of the above, marrying, using animals for food and for work, is included in Hashem's instruction, what he told Adam Arishan before he sinned. And so all these things were already around, and there were already instruction, there's a mitzvah already, that Hashem gave it to us, and it's not because we're punished, because Adam didn't listen to Hashem at that time. If one does all these things with the proper attitude, I mean, he goes out, he does these, Hashem told you, go work, do ishtadlus. Work the fields, use the world's resources, I made it, I put it there, use it. And therefore it's a mitzvah. That's the mindset you have to do when you're going out there and you're doing ishtadlus, whether you're super successful, or you're not super successful, or you're struggling. Understand, at every moment that you do that, you are doing God's will. That is a mitzvah. If one does all these things with the proper attitude, he will be rewarded for his intention in heart and mind to do them for the sake of carrying out the will of Hashem. Regardless of whether his desired goal is accomplished thereby or not. Whether or not one is successful in earning an income or producing children, he is rewarded for the effort. And we spoke about this. We spoke about this a few weeks ago also. And further in Shaar Habitachon, we learn about this. A person is rewarded for going out to do a mitzvah because there's three parts to that mitzvah. There's the planning stage, there's the decision stage. He says, hey, I want to go and do this mitzvah. There's the planning stage. He goes out and plans how to go about doing the mitzvah. And then there's the act of doing the mitzvah. At the end of the day, the person put in his effort. If it didn't work out because he hit traffic or whatever else came up in his way in order he couldn't get to his destination to fulfill that mitzvah, that's not his fault. He exerted energy. And that's what he's saying over here, is that Hashem is going to reward you because you're doing his will. He says, go out, work the fields, do ishtadlus, eat from what I've created. Go out, have children. Not everybody is blessed with children. We understand that. But you still get the schar for the willingness to go out and get married and put together a Yiddish home. But the ultimate outcome of it is that's up to Hashem. And that's not your fault. You exerted your energy. And he says, Hashem gives reward for engaging in these endeavors, as it says in Tehillim, when you eat the labor of your hands, which means the work that you earn from what you work, you are praiseworthy and it is well with you. Meaning that you are praiseworthy in this world for you have performed the mitzvah. And that you will get schar. That everything all his deeds are l'shem shemayim. And that's what you should think about. That everything you do in this world is part of what Hashem wants you to do. It's part of your being. Hashem gave you capabilities to do stuff. He gave you a capability to go out, to work, and to make a livelihood, to provide for yourself, for your wife, your children, and for others as well. As we're going to learn later in Bitachon, that part of your earning of your money that you make, a part of it is made so that you can be able to give to others. And that's part of God's will as well. And that's why you get everything that you do, whether you measure it in the sense of $1, $2, or $1 million, you're still accomplishing the mitzvah of doing God's will. Now, Rav Av adds that engaging in work with the attitude is consistent with bitachon. Meaning, having this mindset is very consistent with bitachon. Moreover, if one engages in these efforts with the attitude that we have just described, his bitachon and Hashem will remain complete, because he will know that despite his efforts, despite going out and working so hard, some people work late hours, multiple jobs, that's only Hashem who's going to be the one providing for him. And at the end of the day, we understand that, and putting that, correlating together with bitachon, understanding that's Hashem that does that. And making use of natural means to obtain his sustenance will not harm him in the least, insofar as his trust in Hashem is concerned. Provided he intends in his heart and mind that he's engaging in them for the sake of Hashem, meaning in fulfilling Hashem's command to work for a living. And that is the mitzvah. He knows that he's going out there not because he needs to make $1 million. He's going out there to do ishtadlus and doing his work because this is what Hashem wants him to do. We emphasize that one must trust in Hashem while engaging in his chosen occupation, and describes the nature of that trust. But while a person is meant to engage in a specific chosen occupation, as we spoke about at the beginning of this week, that after he figures out exactly what works for him, his personality, his physical and mental abilities, and once he goes through that chosen occupation as a means by which to obtain his sustenance, he should not think that his livelihood hinges on any particular avenue of endeavor. Meaning, he shouldn't think that his entire being is because of this industry that he gets into. It's not true. Your livelihood does not depend on this industry or job that you get yourself involved in. That's what Hashem wants you to do. Part of your shtalis in choosing a job based on betachon is that. But it doesn't mean that that's going to be the one that's going to make you successful or keep you around. And that if he is deprived of that from that avenue of his livelihood, will not come to him by the way of a different avenue. Meaning that he understands that if it doesn't come from this job that he figured out that makes sense for him based on his betachon, he shouldn't think that if there's no money coming in there, that's it. He has to understand that the livelihood he's going to get is going to come from anywhere. He can have an investment that all of a sudden did really well. And there's so many different ways Hashem could do that, and I think everybody has seen in their lifetime that money has come to them in one way or another, not where they expected it from. For example, if he was in business of selling horses, he says, and all of a sudden, it's not the 1910s anymore, and people have gravitated into cars, he shouldn't say, "Oh my gosh, my business is no longer obsolete because I'm a horse salesman." No, you could change that. You can get into that. You're still a great salesperson. Start selling cars. Start selling wagons. There's other things that you can do in order to, sorry, not wagons. Wagons correlates with the horses, but start seeing other means of transportation that people will use now. You still have the same customer. Sell them the new product that everyone is selling. And that's what he's saying. He says, just because something's going bad doesn't mean that's where your livelihood is only going to come from that. Things could change, and with that, you're going to change as well. And you should know that all the various avenues by which it can be obtained are the same to Hashem. Meaning it doesn't make a difference if you're packing groceries or if you're selling real estate. If Hashem decreed that you should have money, He's going to figure out a way how to give it to you. That's just how it's going to be. And it doesn't make a difference really at the end of the day what livelihood you choose. Obviously, he wants you to choose the one that makes most sense because there's something called teva, and that's why a lot of times when we get brachos from tzaddikim, they ask you to get involved in something that b'derech teva, Hashem gives these kind of avenues of business a lot of money. It's a lot easier for Hashem to do it that way. Obviously, He can give it. If you decree to have it, you'll have it. Just there's certain things that we do is based on betachon, our abilities, physical and mental abilities, in order to get that done. He'll provide his livelihood through whatever avenue Hashem wants. Whenever he wants. And through whatever sequence of events he wants, whichever cause and effect that Hashem wants. The Pasuk says, Shmuel, for nothing prevents Hashem from saving, whether through many or through few. And it says, two lone individuals, Yonasan and his attendant, were secretly climbing up a mountain towards the Philistine army to attack them. By all normal expectations, there was no chance of their mounting a successful attack, since the enemy outnumbered them by far. But Yonasan encouraged his helper by saying that numbers make no difference, because nothing prevents Hashem from saving, whether through many or through few, because that's what the Pasuk says, not through many or through few. So too, if after many years of success, someone's chosen profession fails, he should not lose heart. Just as until now, Hashem provided his sustenance through one kind of work, he can do so through different kinds of work. That he shouldn't think, oh my gosh, I was a doctor and now I can't work as a doctor anymore and I'm not going to make any more money. No, Hashem took care of you till now. Hashem will continue to take care of you in the future. And when a person does obtain his sustenance by the way of the chosen occupation, he should bear in mind that it's only because Hashem enabled him to do so. As it says in the Pasuk, it says that it was He who gave you the strength to make wealth. And it says, not through army, not through strength, but through my spirit, said Hashem, Master. He said that one's effort is merely a way of actualizing the system of cause and effect that Hashem has set in place to bring him his sustenance. Remember, at the end of the day, Hishtadlus is not there for the sake of, I do a better job than you and therefore I earn more. Hishtadlus is there just because that's what Hashem wants you to do in order to fill this part that he runs the world with cause and effect. And that's how he runs it. And so he wants you to provide that ishtalos. And he commands us to do ishtalos. On that note, I saw a beautiful piece this week in Parshas Vayikra. Parshas Vayikra is actually an extremely difficult parsha to relate to on a level today's days, because it starts talking about karbanos for sacrifices. And this is last Beis HaMikdash was 2,000 years ago or so. And that was like the last time we actually brought sacrificials to the Beis HaMikdash, and to put on to be shechted and to put on to Mizbeach. And he says Vayikra. He says in this pasuk, when he says a nefesh offers a meal offering to Hashem, and talks about a poor person. Hashem says in the Torah, it says when a soul brings, and he says it takes flour, oil, and some spices, some fragrances, and he mixes them together as an offering to Hashem. Rashi over there says, when a soul offers, why do you only say when a soul offers when he brings the least amount you could bring for Hashem, which is a mixture of flour, oil, and these spices, or these incense? And you don't say it when someone brings animals, birds, and other big karbanos. Why don't you say it over there? Why do you say it only by the poor people? Rashi, based on the Gemara, explains that the unusual usage of the word nefesh, which is soul, it teaches us that even though the poor person gives a small flour, oil, and incense, just a small sacrifice offering, God brings great value to that. Hashem sees that the person giving this, what did they sacrifice to bring this? He's not a wealthy person. This person sacrificed their heart and soul into bringing the least he could to Hashem. The Midrash in the Gemara tells us a number of stories to demonstrate this point. It says one of them involves King Agrippas. King Agrippas was a very big king. He was very, and we actually have in Eretz Yisrael and Yerushalayim, we have a street named after him. And he wanted one day to offer 1,000 birds for a korban in the Beis HaMikdash. And so he called on the Kohen Gadol, and he told him that today it's 1,000 birds from me, and me only, nobody else can bring anything. What happened was, later in the day, there was this poor man that came, and he brought 2 birds. And he wanted to sacrifice them. And the Kohen Gadol said, I'm sorry, King Agrippas gave me orders, you can't sacrifice anything but the 1,000 birds that he gave today, and that's it. This person pleaded with the Kohen Gadol and told him, said, look, I make my livelihood off of selling birds. Every day, I capture 4 birds. 2 of them I bring as a korban to Hashem, and 2 of them I sell to make my livelihood, and that's what keeps me alive. I make a few dollars and I keep going. But every day I do this over. He says, I cannot sell these 2 birds if you do not let me sacrifice the 2 other ones to Hashem. I will not go make a livelihood today. You're quite literally going to ruin my livelihood over that. But I will. The Kohen Gadol told him, go sell your 2 other birds. Why do you bring it tomorrow? No, I'm not going to bother to even try to sell before I give Hashem his part. And the Kohen Gadol did it. He was makar of his 2 birds, and that night, King Agrippas had in his cholam, it came to him in his dreams that Hashem told him that the 2 birds that this poor person brought meant more to him than the 1,000 birds that he was makar of today in the Beis HaMikdash. And what that shows from this is, one of the most important lessons that we learn from here is that Hashem is more interested in the process that led to the mitzvah. When Hashem says Vayikra, he talks about his soul, his nefesh. Hashem doesn't want your food. He doesn't want your animals. Hashem's not eating it. There's a different meaning over here. Hashem wants your feelings. He wants you to be in touch with him. Hashem wants you to be close to him. And that's why when someone gives up their heart, their soul, in order to do Hashem's will, that's when Hashem shows more importance to you. He says, when you give your soul, not the rich man who it's easy, not a person who earns a livelihood by something that comes super easy to him, but you working hard, and you have your hard-earned money, and yet you still come to the Beis HaMikdash and you bring something to me. And in today's days, that's translated. Then when we go out of our way to do something, even though it's difficult for us, because it's not our nature. Some people have it easy to do certain stuff and some people don't. But when we push ourselves, we stress ourselves in order to do something in L'Shem Shemayim, we go and say, hey, you know what? Normally I wouldn't do such a mitzvah. I don't know. It's not my thing. No, it is your thing. Push yourself a little harder. It's not your thing to sit and learn. push yourself a little bit. Wake up in the morning, learn for 15 minutes. At night, have a shiur. Whatever it is, you could do it. And Hashem sees that. He sees how much effort you put into it, and it means more to Him, that effort that you put into it. He says you put your nefesh, your soul into it, and that means more to Him than someone brings an abundance that comes to them so easily. Learn from this, guys, that even when you push yourself a little bit to do anything that's l'shem shamayim, you get so much schar for that, and Hashem finds so much more importance in that act of you trying to push yourself, even though when it's uncomfortable, even though when it doesn't come easy to you. Thank you, everyone, for joining us here today. Have a beautiful, a wonderful Shabbos, and I love you all.